And welcome back yet again to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. We are in the home stretch of the show, and this next segment really complements my last segment as well, because this guy's another defensive end who's really wreaking havoc in this league, proving himself to be one of the best players in the league, and the better brother in this case. It is, of course, Nick Bosa. I really believe that Nick Bosa, in one of the league's most versatile defenses, really transcends what the 49ers defense can do. Because all of these defenses are going to talk about, perhaps bar one, but they certainly have the pieces to do that, are the top defenses in the league. The Cowboys, the Steelers, the Browns, and now the 49ers are all top defenses in the league. And each of the players I'm highlighting, especially Nick Bosa in particular, really have made a name for themselves by being the emotional leaders and the leaders in terms of stats for all these teams, just by sheer physicality and understanding of the nuances of the game. But Nick Bosa just might be the best out of all of them, because he's in the system that really works for him the best. And I say this because when I look at the 49ers, I would say, collectively speaking, they have the best, most talented players on their defense. But out of all these teams, they might not necessarily have the best defensive identity. I think that it's just because they're so overwhelmingly talented and understand each other so well that as a result, they play well and are one of the top defenses in the league. Very well coached. They just hired a new defensive coordinator, though, with Nick Sorensen. So that idea of these individual players coming together and making this defense what it is over the defensive identity of some of these other teams and players that I've talked about previously certainly adds up to why Nick Bosa is so pivotal in this system. So without further ado, let's go over some of his stats from last year. 10.5 sacks, 34 solo tackles, 53 overall, 156 tackles in his career, 43 sacks as well, and only 51 regular season games as well. 590.5 fantasy points throughout his career. His best season was in 2022 when he had 170.75. And so, when I'm talking about the 49ers defense, and I look at the 49ers defense, I see definitely the versatility I've talked about in other defenses. I see the way they build. I see the way they are complementing the pieces that make them so good, especially Nick Bosa. And while I'm certainly intrigued by the players, my main thing is the identity. And it kind of feels weird to say that the San Francisco 49ers have all defenses as an identity crisis, but it certainly seems to me as if it's starting to become the Nick Bosa show a little bit. And they certainly have the players where it doesn't have to be. And while I'm sitting here telling you the reasons why Nick Bosa is going to be drafted very highly in IDP leagues, I think he's going to go at least in the top 5. I'm sitting here thinking that maybe it's now time for someone else in the San Francisco 49ers to supplement that. Because I look at all these players, and yes, they're the true standout stars on all their teams. But I'm looking at the reasons as to why maybe they're not going to perform, and I see so many other talents, whether it be in the secondaries of these other defenses, in the front sevens of these different defenses, that I wouldn't be surprised if another player emerges and has a breakout season. With Nick Bosa, I see the ways they're building around him, but I just feel like it's always Nick Bosa that I hear about. And while it's not necessarily detrimental to them, I just want someone different from the San Francisco 49ers to step into the limelight. I feel as if we're overshadowing players like Leonard Floyd, who just came over. We're overshadowing guys like Drake Greenlaw. We're overshadowing guys like Fred Warner. We're overshadowing guys like Hufanga and Ward on the back end. I feel as if in order for the 49ers to find that identity, they have to find out the reason why Nick Bosa is always the guy that's producing for them. I feel like no matter what, they know as a team that Nick Bosa is always going to get the pressure, make the play, and so, collectively speaking, their whole identity revolves around, oh, maybe Nick Bosa's got it. If that mindset starts to creep in, then I don't necessarily see the 49ers truly buying into trying to build that identity. I think Nick Sorensen coming in now really needs to help them get out of the Nick Bosa mindset, because it's dangerous. And I think that in comparison with Micah Parsons, that's one of the players that I think of that I've mentioned before that's kind of similar. Nick Bosa is still further ahead in his career than him, but he's also, mainly focused on just getting to the quarterback. I think that what's important for him now is that whatever Nick Sorensen tells him to do, he now as the leader of the defense is like, hey guys, so we have to collectively as a group figure out how to get you guys more production. Because they probably will, because it's the San Francisco 49ers. They always get production from everywhere. But collectively speaking, I can't pinpoint different players who I'm really confident can overtake Nick Bosa. Like, Leonard Floyd is a fantastic edge rusher. He's a fantastic player. But is he really going to be on par with Nick Bosa? When I think of Micah Parsons, I think that, DeMarcus Lawrence can hold his own with him. I think that on the back end, Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland can hold their own. I think with TJ Watt, Patrick Queen now comes in, and, TJ Watt might not be the top dog anymore even, if they play their cards that way. And with Myles Garrett, this defense is just so passionate around him that eventually, they'll be good enough to go on without him. And definitely think that the additions the Browns have made really make sense to get the most out of him while they can. And right now, the 49ers, even though they've gone farther than each of these teams on these lists in these past couple of years, still feel to me as if they're not doing enough defensively outside of, just hoping Nick Bosa shows up. And, you might slander me in the comments, but that's my humble opinion about as why Nick Bosa just has the burden of carrying this defense. I really like the guys that are there. I really like them. But in order for them to be talked about more, in order for them to be just as exciting as a Nick Bosa, to be as coveted as a Nick Bosa has to figure out why. Why is it me that's getting all this production? Why can't it be my teammates? Because this is going to be a very pivotal year for the San Francisco 49ers, especially defensively. Everyone could be healthy. Everyone could be looking to get that Super Bowl. Everyone wants it in the building. They want the San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl again. In order to do that, it's going to have to be collective unit. And right now, it feels weird that these words are coming out of my mouth. But the San Francisco 49ers felt like the least collectively bonded defenses out of the ones I've mentioned. And it's all because of the Nick Bosa-sized problem they have on their hands. That should just about do it for this segment. Coming next, we probably have quote-unquote the worst player of these five, but I still think he's being completely undervalued in terms of IDP drafts. Tune in to find out who it is when we come back on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast.